Colden is saying hi, and so am I. This is Jamie with Color Flutter Creations. I'm missing my mom, making another Mother's Day card, and this time I'm using the Mom Stamp Set by Pixie Dust Designs from their new release. I'm coupling this with some other products. One is this scrapbook.com nested octagons. And I'm going to use the branches and the flower element from this Momenta Birds die set. I decided I wanted to make this a shape card. So I am taking the largest octagon die from the set that will fit on my already pre-folded base, card base here. And I'm putting the left edge of the die right past the fold line of my card base. I don't want to cut that off because again, we still need a hinge and for the card to open and close. I then place the bottom edge of the die right past the bottom edge of my card base before running this through my Spellbinders Platinum 6 die cutting machine. And it cuts perfectly. I actually, because it's thicker, depending on your machine, you may need to run it through a couple of times, but I had no issues. I had a little bit of residual tackiness, glue, whatever, from the mint tape. So I have a rubber eraser, and this is taking off just that little added bit of glue from the base that I've just cut out. And there is our fun octagonal shape. I then take a smaller octagon die from the same nested die set, and I think this one is one, maybe even two sizes down, and I run that through on this sorry, I don't know colors today. However, am I going to craft if I don't know colors? Anyhow, I run that through my die cutting machine and I'm putting that aside. And then I move on to cutting out the branches and the flowers. So the branches, as you can see on the left side of my workstation, I have cut out a lot of branches. We are going to be layering a lot of these up. We're going to be doing some ink blending, and I didn't know how many I was going to need. So in the end, I decided more was better because I can always keep these in my stash if I have extras. So always think of things that way as well. Your stash will love you, and it's easier to pull from in the last minute cards that you have to make in a pinch. I then cut out the flower. Now, this die set only has one flower, so I had to run it through quite a few times, but it is a really cool flower, so I don't mind doing this. It has this extra kind of embossed detail on it, which really just adds an extra little like oomph to, I don't know, the die cut itself. It's just really pretty. So anyway, I cut this out several times out of this darker pink, and then I'm actually going to cut it out a couple of times from a lighter pink color as well. And both of these are just cut out of cardstock scraps from my stash. So from the Mom Stamp Set, I'm going to be using the pandas and the Happy Mother's Day sentiment. So I've already got them placed into my Misty, stamping platform here. I'm taking my favorite black ink, which you all know is my Altenew Black Obsidian ink. I absolutely love this for detailed stamping, sentiments, and that just true black coverage. I stamped this a few times because I really wanted the body of the pandas to be very crisp and filled in with the black ink. I did not want to risk there being any blotchiness before I put my clear embossing powder over this. Once I have really good coverage of the powder on my stamped images, I can take my Wow dual speed heat tool, put it on that second setting, which is the hottest setting. I'm going to heat that up a little bit, let it heat up before I take it to my paper, just because I find that it actually allows the embossing powder to melt quicker. And that to me creates a smoother finish. Just my opinion. There's a lot of them out there, but that's how I find it to be best. Y'all know I have some issues with scissors, so fussy cutting is not necessarily my strong suit, as with most cutting, but This stamped image is so cute, and how I want to use it on this card, I have to do a little bit of fussy cutting. So I take my little scrapbook.com shears, and they're really small, fine point, and I really like them for fussy cutting. It allows me to get close and within certain areas of the stamped image that, maybe are a little tighter of a squeeze. But I don't care that this stamp set doesn't have a die because it is just too cute. I'm willing to do the fussy cutting. I wanted to have a little bit of a decorative, shape to my sentiment. So I found a nested label die set that I don't even know the name of and decided to cut out my sentiment with that. And I love the shape of this. It just adds a little bit of a, I don't know, kind of a feminine touch, I guess, but a little unique. I then move on to the actual inking of our branches. I have my waffle flower shader brushes, one that is designated for browns with a lighter and then darker end, or that's how I use them. And then, of course, one that I have designated for greens. Now, I have some Altenew inks, and I'm using 3 different shades of brown. They're espresso, mocha, and rocky shores. And I think this is going to give us a really great look to our branches. And then once I have my branches done, I'm going to go in with the green, and I'm going to be using Shadow Creek Grass Fields, which is one of my favorite greens from Altenew, and then Firefly, which is also becoming one of my favorites. It's kind of this limey but pale, limey slash grassy green look. I don't know. It is a wonderful color. Anyway, I don't take, of course, too much time to really do this. I'm just putting ink down. I'm going to be chopping off some of these branches anyway, and then the leaves, I just feel that it having an organic touch to them, meaning sometimes leaves have shading and shadowing in different areas than others. So just making sure that it's not all the same and inked all the same all the way around. I really needed to figure out the placement for my card, so I'm just trying to take some time to look at where I want my panda, where I want my sentiment, where I want my branches before I really start gluing everything. I'm going to be using Nuvo glue that is in the My Sweet Petunia Precision Glue Press, and I really like the glue press. There's some things about it that I'm like most things, there's some things that I'm like, maybe, a new iteration would fix this, that, or the other, but overall, I really, really like it. It really has helped my hands, and I think it actually saves me from using too much glue because it is designed to give a nice fine line of glue, which works well when you're, having thin type of pieces like these branches, right? It's nice to have that precision fine line there. So I'm taking 2 of the extra pieces and layering those together before layering on my inked branch. This way, there's a little bit of dimension. Now, what I have die cut out of is just standard cardstock. It's not like the thickness of a card base, so it's not extremely thick. But there's just was no way that we would have been able to really add foam dots or anything to this. There are some other ways, I guess, that you could add some additional dimension without so many die cuts, but I really like the clean look that this gives. I do go back and keep looking at my other elements to make sure that they are going to be positioned where I want them and I'm not accidentally putting a branch over where I'm going to want my panda, for example. It really does just kind of help keep the placement. And then I can make sure all my branches are just nice and glued on and secure. Now I'm not chopping off the leaves that are sticking over the edges. I'm just taking my spellbinder scissors and I'm chopping off those branches. So I have some where, a little bit of the leaf is over the edge. I'm not touching that, just the branches. I can then put this onto that shape card base that we cut out right at the beginning of this video. I put liquid adhesive around the edge of the octagon shape here, and then a lot, as you can see, and kind of dot that all around so that I can put this right in the center of our card base. And Doesn't the white border around that just look so good? I love a good navy or blue cardstock over a white with that border. It just, there's something about it. And then with the green leaves, oh, it's just a poppin' for me. This is a pretty simple card with not tons and tons of layering and stuff. So I wanted to still do a little more dimension, and I decided to pull out my Altenew set, which is this kind of petal shaper set. It has this foam, kind of black foam mat, almost like the foam that you would find in your Misty, but maybe a slightly softer. I don't know how to describe it, but it's a foam mat. And then it comes with three different double-ended kind of shaping tools. And really, it's just a ball, and it's a metal ball that allows it to glide over your paper and your flower elements. And really, you can add line details. Like I'm adding additional line details here with the smaller one. And then I go in and I can add and kind of round out using a larger shape ball. It really depends on the sizes of the leaves, as well as how curved you want it to be. Do you want it to be a tighter curve at an end, or do you want it to be, maybe a more swoopy kind of curve of your leaves, and you want to go with that bigger kind of ball end of one of the tools? If you do not have this set, pay no mind. You probably have a bone folder, and you can do the same thing with a bone folder. You can grab a pencil, whatever you want, as long as it's not too sharp and you're going to not pierce too hard that it goes through your paper. That's what we don't want. We do not want to rip our cardstock. Of course, I couldn't leave good enough alone, so I pulled out my purple wine Altenew ink here, and I'm just adding this kind of in the center of these flowers to kind of highlight where that embossing detail was. I'm going to layer these together. So my darker pink is going to lay over the lighter pink. And I'm just using a little bit of liquid adhesive on the back of that pink flower. Now, when I was rounding out my leaves, what I did was the lighter pink ones, I actually had the petals going backwards, and the darker pink kind of fold more inward, so they're kind of going in opposite directions is my point. And here are my handy dandy, old as can be, pop-up foam dots. My goodness, these things are everlasting gobstoppers, I swear. So I put a little bit of a dot on the back of each of these flowers. And again, this is really not just to stick the flower on, but because I folded those lighter pink leaves backwards, I didn't want to lose the shape by using liquid adhesive and having to smash that down. So having that foam behind there allows the petals to keep the shape that I put them in. And I wouldn't be me if I didn't just totally mess something up. So of course, I stick down this flower and I'm like, oh, I love this placement. Wait a minute. That's going to interfere with my sentiment. So let's pull that off real quick, and let's go ahead and figure out the placement of our sentiment. And then I can make sure that nothing is going to interfere with either the sentiment or my panda, and I have the positioning the way that I want it. Because I had to rip it off, my petals got a little bit smushed. So I'm just taking my fingers and rounding those bottom ones back out before I get ready to kind of place that where I want it to be. And then I can actually use the liquid adhesive to put down my sentiment so we're not missing that component. And then I can reposition my flower, and I can then stick that down because I really did need my sentiment to be on there first, and I didn't want to use foam on the sentiment because I was already using other elements for dimension. I pulled out some of my Olo alcohol markers because we are going to color in the branch and leaves that the pandas are resting upon. And then the mama panda has an actual like floral crown or halo. And I wanted to add some color to that. There's already these flowers that have color. So I really wanted everything to be pretty cohesive and not just everything be black and white when it came to the pandas themselves. I am always doing black ink with clear embossing powder, or a lot of times I'll use other color inks as well, but I use that clear embossing powder to really give me almost like a little bit of a lip. And that helps me when I'm doing alcohol marker coloring, or even if I'm taking some of these alcohol markers, adding a little bit of water and doing some, maybe watercolor painting or doing that with inks, it kind of helps it stay in the lines. So that's what I really like about doing the clear embossing powder over my inked and stamped images. The obsidian black ink, it is a permanent ink when it dries. So if you wanted to skip the embossing powder that I do, then you can absolutely do that and your colors still won't run. I just like having that extra barrier. I realized there was no shine on my card, and that cannot be the case. So I pulled out my stickles in this gold color and thought, let's just add it to the center of all of these different flowers, not just the flowers in the Panda Mom's floral crown, but also in the center of the flowers on the card. Our branches are popped up a little bit, right? Because we layered those. So I added some foam dots to the back of my panda so it would also kind of be a little more raised than what those branches are. And then I'm able to kind of position that exactly how I want it, which is right coming over that Happy Mother's Day sentiment. And that completes our card for today. Let me know in the comments what your favorite element of this card is. I think the embossing powder over the stamped pandas has got to be my favorite. It just adds a little something with that glossiness. Beautiful. As a reminder, how we made our card today used the following products. The Mom Stamp Set by Pixie Dust Designs, and this is out now from their new release, and that's the panda and the sentiment. I then used the Birds Momenta die set, which gave me the flowers and those branches with the leaves. Then from scrapbook.com, we have the nested octagon dies, and that gave us our shapes. Thank you for joining me today, and I hope you enjoyed this card as much as I do. Stay tuned for more crafty fun to be had. Take care. Bye-bye. Thank you for supporting me by subscribing, liking, commenting, and sharing this video.